So imagine you're staring down this multi-million-dollar valve manifold in an offshore oil refinery.
Oh, man. High stakes.
Right. The system is totally redlining, the alarm is just deafening, and you're wearing these heavy safety gloves.
Yeah, not a great situation to be in.
No, not at all. And historically, your options to fix this imminent disaster involve like frantically radioing a control room or desperately flipping through a 500-page static laminated manual while standing in the rain.
Which is just wild when you think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now imagine instead that an artificial intelligence overlay is projected onto your safety glasses. It highlights the exact pressure bolt you need to adjust, it tracks your wrench in real time, and, well, verifies the fix instantly.
It completely reframes how we think about automation.
It really does.
Because, we spent the last few years totally captivated by this idea of AI as a white-collar tool. We treat it like this highly efficient assistant that sits neatly inside our laptops, generating code or drafting marketing copy, summarizing long email threads.
Yeah, the stuff we use every day.
Right. But that is an incredibly narrow, keyboard-centric view of human labor.
Right, which brings us to our mission for today's deep dive. We are unpacking a major launch that just dropped today, May 22, 2026, from a company called EON Reality.
A huge announcement.
Yeah, they're introducing a platform called EON Spatial OS. And the premise here is about, ripping artificial intelligence out of the cozy, predictable office cubicle and just shoving it into the chaotic, high-stakes physical world.
Yeah, they're building what they call the infrastructure for industrial human 2.0.
Which is a heavy phrase.
It is. And to really understand the gravity of that, we should probably ground that term human 2.0.
Yeah, let's do that.
So the phrase itself has been circulating heavily, particularly championed recently by Qualcomm CEO Cristiano Amon.
Right, yeah.
He uses it to describe a highly personalized ecosystem of you. It's this vision where consumer AI acts as a deeply integrated, constantly present digital companion that navigates your daily digital life.
Like a super-powered digital assistant.
Exactly. And EON Reality is taking that consumer-focused philosophy and claiming they have spent the last quarter century quietly architecting the industrial equivalent.
And the contrast between those two worlds is just staggering. I mean, if consumer AI is essentially a digital concierge that helps you book a flight or analyze a spreadsheet, we have to look at who this industrial version is actually built for.
Yeah, because we aren't talking about knowledge workers here.
No, we're really not.
We're talking about the foundation of the global economy that Silicon Valley has, honestly, largely ignored. There are 2.7 billion deskless workers globally.
2.7 billion, that's a massive number.
Right. These are the nurses, the aerospace technicians, the offshore operators, the power grid maintainers.
So who actually build things.
The manufacturing floor staff. They are the individuals who physically keep society functioning. But the entire first wave of generative AI completely passed them by.
Because that wave was built on the assumption of a text box.
Exactly. It was text in, text out. If your hands are covered in grease or, I don't know, you're holding a surgical instrument, a text-based large language model is completely useless to you.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit because Dan Lajuskar, who is the founder and chairman of EON Reality, puts a very sharp point on this in their strategy overview.
Oh, that quote is fantastic.
Yeah, he notes that consumer human 2.0 might pay your dinner bill, but industrial human 2.0 prevents a $50 million unplanned shutdown.
It's the financial and physical stakes aren't even in the same universe.
Not even close. So if consumer AI is like having a digital butler, EON is trying to give Iron Man's Jarvis system to an everyday oil rig worker.
That's a perfect way to look at it. The cost of a single error in these environments can be catastrophic.
Yeah.
Whether that's a collapsed supply chain, an environmental disaster, or, heaven forbid, a loss of human life.
But wait, I have to push back here. Because factories and field operations are messy. They're chaotic and unpredictable.
Oh, absolutely.
Like a camera lens on a pair of smart glasses gets smudged with oil. Or you're working in the dark inside an airplane fuselage.
Or you're deep underground where the Wi-Fi just completely drops.
Exactly. So how does an AI system actually interact with a physical compressor or an MRI scanner in those grimy environments without hallucinating some completely wrong, potentially dangerous instruction? If it can't see perfectly, does it just, guess?
Well, I want you to imagine being in that position. You're doing a highly technical, physical job where a single mistake costs millions. Relying on static paper manuals is tough, but relying on an AI that hallucinates is worse.
Right.
So that is the ultimate engineering hurdle for spatial computing, and it requires moving away from cloud-dependent processing to edge computing.
Meaning the processing happens right there.
Yes, locally on the device itself. To avoid hallucinations in a physical space, the system can't just be a generic image recognizer.
Okay, so what is it then?
It has to anchor its intelligence to the specific physical geometry of the room you are standing in. It relies on localized spatial mapping.
So it knows its physical context.
Heavily. It uses trained computer vision algorithms that understand the mechanical state of an object, even if the lighting is poor or the lens is dirty.
Wow.
It has to filter out the noise of the factory floor and recognize a compressor, not just by its color or a label, but by its distinct 3D structural signature.
Let's actually walk through how that plays out for a worker on the ground. EON N has structured this spatial OS into 4 distinct layers.
4 pillars, yeah.
So instead of just listing them off, let's put you, our listener, back in the boots of that oil rig technician we talked about earlier.
Okay, I like that.
You are staring at that faulty valve manifold. How did the instructions for that specific, incredibly complex machine even get into your smart glasses in the first place?
Well, that initial step is handled by the first pillar of the OS, which they call Genesis 3. This is their generative 3D content engine.
Okay.
In the past, creating a spatial 3D interactive manual for a custom valve manifold required hiring an entire team of 3D modelers and software developers.
Which sounds expensive.
Incredibly expensive. It could take months of agonizingly slow work and hundreds of thousands of dollars just to build a digital twin of one single machine.
Yikes.
Genesis 3 fundamentally eliminates that bottleneck. They use what they call object-to-world and photo-to-environment pipelines.
Here's where it gets really interesting. So Genesis 3 is basically like a magical 3D photocopier that instantly writes an interactive instruction manual just by looking at a machine.
Actually, that's exactly what it is. A subject matter expert can simply take photographs or like a localized scan of the physical equipment.
Just with a standard camera.
Pretty much.
Okay.
And the Genesis 3 engine uses photogrammetry and spatial mapping to instantly generate an interactive, geometrically accurate knowledge object.
That is wild.
It drops the per-asset authoring cost by an order of magnitude. It democratizes the creation of the 3D manual itself.
Okay, so the knowledge object exists. Genesis 3 built the dynamic blueprint. Now you, the technician, walk up to the machine. What happens next?
This is where the second layer, AssistIQ, takes over. Think of AssistIQ as your real-time AI coworker.
The coworker, okay.
When you look at that manifold, AssistIQ is looking through the outward-facing cameras of your headset or your tablet. It runs real-time computer vision models trained specifically on mechanical states.
So it knows what it's looking at.
Exactly. It recognizes the exact asset, retrieves the blueprint that Genesis 3 created, and perfectly overlays that digital information onto the physical world right in front of you.
So it's acting like a transparent blueprint dynamically projected onto reality.
Yes.
And adjusting itself in real time as you with your head.
Right, and it goes a step further. It audibly narrates the procedure and visually tracks your hands.
Wait, it watches your hands.
Yeah. So when you turn a dial, the computer vision tracks the occlusion of your hands over the physical object to verify the dial's new position. It confirms you turned it to exactly 45 degrees before it allows you to move to the next step.
But hold on. The camera alone can't possibly know everything. What if the dial looks correct on the outside, but the internal pressure is totally wrong? The visual data is only half the story.
Which is why the camera alone isn't enough. And that brings us to the third layer, FieldIQ.
FieldIQ, right?
This is the operations performance layer. It bridges the gap between what the camera sees and what the machine is actually feeling.
Oh, wow.
FieldIQ ties the spatial procedure directly into the machine's IoT Internet of Things sensors.
Ah, so the machine itself is talking back to the operating system. You have dual verification.
Exactly. The physical asset's internal telemetry, its temperature, its pressure, its flow rate, is streaming into the same OS that is watching your hands.
That is so smart.
Because it has this dual stream of data, FieldIQ can log incredibly nuanced operational metrics. It tracks near misses.
Which is huge for safety.
Huge. It documents the exact first-time fix rate, which is basically the holy grail metric in industrial maintenance.
Yeah, doing it right the first time.
It takes the invisible physical labor happening on the factory floor and turns it into highly quantifiable, searchable, real-time analytics for the management team.
You suddenly have absolute visibility into the physical operations of your workforce.
Totally.
And I imagine that data feeds directly into how they evaluate the workers themselves, which leads to the final layer.
Right. The fourth component is Career Compass, which closes the loop on the human element. It acts as a workforce intelligence layer.
Meaning it tracks their skills.
Exactly. Every time a worker successfully completes a complex task using AssistIQ, that verified completion is logged. The system maps the new skills the worker is acquiring against organizational needs and income pathways.
Okay, so they actually get credit for learning.
Yeah, EON ties this into their impact share model. It creates a very tangible track record of upskilling. The system proves, with hard data, that a worker is becoming more capable over time through their interaction with the AI.
Having this brilliant four-part software stack, the generative 3D creation, the computer vision coworker, the IoT integration, and the skill tracking it is incredibly compelling.
It really covers all the bases.
And this is a but to really get that seamless hands-free experience where the AI is tracking your physical movements, you need an augmented reality headset.
You do? Yeah.
And if I am a chief information officer at a Fortune 500 company, the idea of buying 10,000 Apple Vision Pros or Microsoft HoloLenses or MetaQuests is terrifying.
Oh, it's a nightmare for them.
The enterprise hardware graveyard is packed with abandoned projects. We saw Google Glass Enterprise Edition get entirely sunsetted. Hardware companies pivot or kill product lines all the time.
All the time.
Building your company's operational future around one specific piece of glass on someone's face seems like a massive career-ending gamble. What if a hospital buys 1,000 headsets and that hardware company just goes under?
That exact fear of hardware lock-in has paralyzed the enterprise XR market for years.
I can imagine.
A CIO simply cannot afford to guess which tech giant will win the hardware wars of the 2030s. And EON's strategic answer to this is perhaps the smartest business maneuver in their entire ecosystem.
Is.
EON Spatial OS is entirely hardware-agnostic by design.
Oh, really?
The software simply does not care whose glass you are looking through.
So it insulates the enterprise from the chaos of the consumer hardware battles.
Exactly. Looking at their deployment specs, the software runs today on the Ray-Ban Meta display, the Microsoft HoloLens 2, the MetaQuest 3 and 3S line.
Wait, they already support all of those?
All of them, as well as standard iOS and Android tablets. You don't even need to buy a single headset to start using the OS right now.
Oh, that's huge.
A worker can hold up a ruggedized iPad and get the exact same spatial overlay and computer vision verification.
They could utilize the hardware capital they already own.
Yeah.
Which drastically lowers the barrier to entry. But the hardware market is moving incredibly fast.
It is.
What happens in 2 years when a radically different lightweight pair of glasses hits the market?
Well, what's fascinating here is that EON has structured the OS to be pre-integration ready for the upcoming wave of devices.
Like what?
They are already targeting the Samsung Galaxy glasses slated for August 2026.
Nice.
Snap specs, Meta's Orion developer units in 2026 moving toward their consumer line, and the highly anticipated Apple AR glasses in that 2027 to 2028 window.
So they're just waiting for the hardware to catch up.
They are blanketing the entire future ecosystem, including the broader Android XR family from manufacturers like Xreal and Pico.
The business psychology there is brilliant. A CIO can deploy a pilot program today using the iPads their technicians already have in their trucks.
Zero new hardware risks.
They prove the software works, they start gathering the FieldIQ data, and they build their library of Genesis 3 knowledge objects. Then, 3 years down the line, when Meta or Apple finally releases the perfect, lightweight, safety-rated industrial smart glass, the company just scales the exact same software onto the new hardware.
Right.
The operating system remains the permanent, unmoving bedrock beneath all that hardware turnover.
And that focus on mitigating risk for cautious executives ties directly into how EON is structuring their sales motion.
Right. How do you actually sell this massive shift?
They are launching what they call a CIO innovation package. Enterprise sales in 2026 require a very specific approach. Companies are facing massive pressure from their boards to implement AI.
Everyone wants AI.
Everyone wants it. But they are terrified of pouring money into endless nebulous tech deployments that never show a return on investment.
So they contain the blast radius of the experiment. EON introduced this specific financial offering in their press release, right?
Yes. The package is a fixed scope, fixed price 90-day pilot for $250,000.
Okay, so very contained.
In the enterprise software space, a $250,000 price tag is highly strategic. It is perfectly sized to fit within a CIO's designated discretionary AI experimentation budget.
So they don't need a massive board approval for it.
Exactly. But the structure of the 90 days is what matters. EON doesn't just hand over the software licenses and walk away.
Right.
The pilot includes using Genesis 3 to map the company's actual physical assets, deploying AssistIQ on whatever hardware they currently have, and executing a rigorous baseline and delta measurement against a specific operational key performance indicator.
They force a measurable outcome. They say, give us 90 days, and we will objectively prove that our computer vision can reduce your machine downtime by X% or increase your first-time fix rate by Y%.
Yes. And once they prove that delta, once they show that hard ROI, the entire dynamic of the business relationship changes. EON provides a pre-built playbook to transition the software from the CIO's experimental budget directly over to the Vice President of Operations.
And this transition represents a fundamental evolution in EON's corporate identity. Let's follow the money on that because the budget shift is the real story here.
It's massive.
For most of its 25-year history, starting back in 2001, EON Reality has operated largely as an immersive learning and training company.
Right, VR training, AR modules.
But corporate learning and development budgets, L&D budgets, are notoriously capped. A massive global training contract might max out at $1 to $3 million.
Because training is viewed by the C-suite as a cost center.
Exactly.
Operations, however, owns the profit and loss for the actual physical output of the company. If a VP of operations sees empirical proof that a spatial AI coworker can prevent a catastrophic $50 million failure on an offshore rig.
The conversation is no longer about training.
No. It is about operational continuity and risk mitigation.
And suddenly you are dipping into the operations and maintenance budget, where the financial scale is completely different.
Industrial operations contracts routinely scale 10 to 40 times larger than training contracts.
Wow.
EON is repositioning themselves to secure $10 to $30 million enterprise agreements, utilizing the exact same underlying spatial software engine. And they're doing it simply by proving real-time operational performance rather than just post-event training retention.
So what does this all mean? They are explicitly stating that they are an operations performance partner now. Yes, that is a massive pivot for a quarter-century-old company. To recategorize yourself into an entirely different financial bucket takes serious proof of concept. Do they have the actual market momentum to back up this grand vision of owning the industrial AI space?
The initial indicators are extremely strong. They are currently raising a Series A round through their Singapore-based operating entity, EON AI Ventures, to fuel this specific Human 2.0 industrial rollout.
Okay, so real money moving behind this.
Oh, yeah. And the engagements they've already secured are with some of the largest heavy industry players on Earth. They have a signed proof of concept with an upfront payment structure for upstream operations with ExxonMobil.
Wow, Exxon.
They have confirmed in-kingdom hosting requirements for Saudi Aramco.
Those are absolute titans of physical industry.
They really are. They are also executing a 100-seat pilot starting in June 2026 with UC Riverside Extension. They have an active partnership with NLI Kuwait, and they are pursuing national skills infrastructure projects with Skills Group New Zealand.
So it's truly global.
Very global. They are moving aggressively across energy, education, and national infrastructure.
And we shouldn't overlook their historical advantage here. They aren't some startup launching from a garage with zero data.
No, not at all.
They have a 25-year backlog of operations. They cite 4,400 institutional customers across more than 80 countries and 136 million historical platform downloads.
The scale of their data is hard to comprehend.
Right. They possess this massive pre-existing repository of 3D spatial and procedural data. They are basically taking a brand new, highly advanced edge computing AI engine and unleashing it onto decades of accumulated industrial knowledge.
Which gives them an overwhelming head start in a sector that they accurately describe as the largest uncontested AI category.
Uncontested.
Think about it. While Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI are fighting this brutal, incredibly expensive war over who gets to summarize your emails or write your code,
Right.
the industrial spatial computing market has been largely left wide open.
It really forces a reset on how we evaluate the AI landscape. For the past few years, the prevailing narrative has been hyper-focused on the screen. We've been completely mesmerized by consumer chatbots, generative art, and digital assistants.
Guilty as charged.
Well, me too. Meanwhile, companies like EON Reality have been quietly, methodically, building the robust, hardware-agnostic infrastructure required to pull artificial intelligence off the desk and inject it directly into the physical realities of the factory floor, the hospital ward, and the energy grid.
Exactly.
They are building the spatial brain for the 2.7 billion deskless workers who actually keep the physical world functioning.
And I think the most critical takeaway for you listening to this as you watch this technology unfold is to expand your definition of what the future of work looks like.
Absolutely.
The next time the phrase Human 2.0 comes up, don't just picture a consumer wearing sleek AR glasses to translate a foreign language menu or get walking directions. Picture the invisible, high-stakes industrial backbone of our economy.
The people doing the heavy lifting.
Right. That is where spatial AI will drive unprecedented economic efficiency and fundamentally alter how human beings interact with complex machinery.
It completely reframes the immediate economic impact of AI.
Hmm.
But, as we look at how intricately this software measures human behavior, it leaves me with one final, slightly unsettling thought to consider.
What's that?
Well, we broke down how that FieldIQ layer operates, how it pulls data from the machine's IoT sensors while simultaneously using computer vision to track a worker's exact hand movements and verify their compliance millisecond by millisecond.
Right, the dual verification.
Yeah, it logs every near miss, it calculates the first-time fix rate, and it feeds all of that hyper-granular physical data up to the management dashboard.
Yes.
So if an operating system is constantly mapping your physical body and space, evaluating your speed, and hard-stopping your workflow until you turn a wrench exactly as the algorithm demands, where is the boundary between an AI coworker that genuinely exists to protect you from making a dangerous mistake and an AI surveillance manager that strips away human agency on the factory floor?
That is a very thin line.
It really is. As artificial intelligence leaves the keyboard and begins to physically govern how 2.7 billion people use their hands, we really have to ask, who is actually in control of the physical world industrial human 2.0, or the operating system observing their every move?